Hi, friends. Welcome, everyone. My name's Tammy Simon. I'm the founder of Sounds True, and it is a joy, a delight to welcome you to this opening session of the Science of Flourishing. The Science of Flourishing is a 6-week learning experience. It's being offered by our friends at Healthy Minds Innovations, a nonprofit organization on a mission to translate science into tools we can all use to cultivate well-being. I've had a little cough. I'm interested in cultivating well-being with all of you. Excuse me. We're here with Stephanie Wagner, who's the lead trainer and director of learning and development for Healthy Minds Innovations. And we're also here with Dr. Richie Davidson, who's the founder of Healthy Minds Innovation, an internationally respected contemplative neuroscientist. With that and my slight cough and an apology, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie, who's going to lead us off here. Stephanie, welcome.
Hi, Tammy. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Tammy. I hope you take good care of that cough. Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here for our session today to kick off the Science of Flourishing course, as Tammy mentioned. And so whether you are here because you're signed up for the course, or perhaps you're just curious about the course, we're excited to spend about the next hour, 50 to 60 minutes together here, talking about such an important topic, which is the topic of flourishing. So as we're getting started today, I really actually want to hear from you for a moment. I'd be curious to hear what inspired you to join the session. If you could share with me via chat what inspired you to join the session today, I will give you just a moment to respond. And it's wonderful to see where everyone is from. Great. All right, so past experiences with HMI. Flourishing sounds like a great topic. Wants to wake up with gratitude and joy. Wonderful, wonderful aspirations. Okay, well, Tammy really gave such a nice introduction to who we are at Healthy Minds Innovations. And myself and Richie, again, my name is Stephanie. I'm the Director of Learning and Development for Healthy Minds, and I'm joined by pioneering neuroscientist Dr. Richard Davidson, who is the founder of Healthy Minds Innovations, as well as the Center for Healthy Minds, a research institution at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We're on a fire with our mission to bring well-being into the world through translating scientific insights to help you cultivate as well as measure well-being. So with that said, I think Richie is here. Richie, if you'll please come on camera, join me. So I can just share with you that the first, about the next 20 minutes, I'm going to be in conversation with Richie, asking some questions about thriving and flourishing. And then I will take over the session, leading us in a guided practice and giving a little bit of an overview of the course. So hi, Richie. Thanks for being here today.
Great to see you, Stephanie. Always wonderful.
Yeah. So I want to ask a really important question here, which is, how do you define flourishing? You know, there are so many ways that people use this word. I'm just curious what it means from your perspective, especially through the lens, of course, of science and contemplative practice.
Yeah, so as you correctly say, there isn't really an agreed upon definition of flourishing. In our center and at Healthy Minds Innovations, we've adopted a framework that we published a few years ago that uh, underscores four important constituents of flourishing or well-being, each of which can be learned, can be cultivated. Those four are awareness, connection, insight, and purpose. And so one way to define flourishing is having high levels of awareness, connection, insight, and purpose. Um, uh, of course, that doesn't say much at this point in time for those who may not be familiar with what these pillars might be referring to. But these are pillars that are assumed to be innate capacities that every human being shares. And what we mean by that is that we all come into the world born to flourish, which actually is the name of a new book that Court and I are co-authors of. Um, and what we mean by saying that we're born to flourish, we mean that we all have these uh, capabilities as, if you will, incipient capabilities. They're not fully realized at the start, and it's kind of like language. We all come into the world with a capacity for language, but in order for that capacity to be expressed, it needs to be nurtured. So uh, these four pillars are there and they require nurturing in order to fully flourish.
So, what you're pointing to here, I think, in the fact that these are innate qualities that we're born with, is that even in the face of difficult times, we have the capacity to flourish. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and it's not in any way to diminish the very real challenges and adversities and complexities of the world today. And sadly, there are people who are in extremely difficult positions in war zones and the like that makes the capacity to flourish very, very challenging. And yet it is we believe possible, even in very adverse circumstances, to recalibrate and to change the way we are perceiving things, change our mindset in certain ways that helps give us vitality, helps improve resilience, and more generally enables us to really cope with whatever may be coming down the pike.
Yes, thank you so much for acknowledging the truth of the suffering in the world. And it sounds like what you're saying is really it just allows us to be able to sort of almost change our perspective or change our relationship to what's happening, but not to diminish the challenges that we have in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah, wonderful. One of the things that's coming to my mind is that, sometimes it can feel like training our own minds can feel almost like a selfish pursuit in a way. Like, how does working with my own mind or working with my own heart change the world? How can it impact others? So I'm just curious if you could speak a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, people who are displaying high levels of well-being or flourishing have ripple effects around them. They radiate. And that kind of ripple effect has measurable consequences on others in their social network. And I think most people have experienced this in their lives. So, for example, if you're around a person who's just really nice and friendly and kind and compassionate, you feel good in their presence. I think that most people have experienced that with someone in their life, hopefully more than one person. And so, I think it's an experiential truth that we all have at least tasted. And research-wise, the science shows that this is real. And so, just to give one example, we recently completed a research study that we're super excited about with a large group of public school teachers in Louisville, Kentucky, more than 800 teachers, and they were randomly assigned to receive our well-being training, where they were trained on awareness, connection, insight, and purpose. And we had a control group that was not trained on this. And I won't go into the details of the control group now. But we randomly assign the teachers to one or another of these groups. And one of the outcomes that we measured is not just the teacher's well-being, but we measured how the students were doing. So we compared the students who were taught by the teachers who went through our well-being training to the students who were taught by teachers who were randomly assigned to the control group. And guess what? The students who were taught by the teachers who went through the well-being training, randomly assigned to the well-being training, performed significantly better on a number of standardized tests. That's the first time that this has ever been shown. And this is like the holy grail of this kind of work, and clearly demonstrates that there are these measurable ripple effects.
Wow, that is so inspiring and really amazing. And I know just from my own experience of like when I'm meditating consistently, it allows me to tap into my best qualities. Like I feel like I can really show up as my best self. And in turn, that it impacts, the way that I'm with others, the way that I'm with my coworkers, my spouse. I'm more kind, more present, more compassionate, more open, more curious. And so it really does seem to have like that ripple effect. And it's just wonderful to hear the research validating the positive ripple effect in the education setting. That's wonderful. Thank you. So, one thing that comes to my mind is that this framework of well-being that we're talking about here, awareness, connection, insight, and purpose, really extends beyond mindfulness. Can you talk a little bit about why mindfulness might not be enough, or what might be the limitations of only practicing mindfulness? I think there are a lot of programs out there that, promote mindfulness and maybe orient primarily towards mindfulness. So how is this framework different?
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking that important question. And sometimes some people refer to the Healthy Minds Program app that we've developed as a mindfulness app. And I always am quick to remind them that it's not a mindfulness app. It includes mindfulness, but it includes much more than mindfulness. And so scientific research shows that mindfulness is one of several components that are critical for well-being and flourishing. And the analogy that I sometimes use is that if it's kind of like going to the gym and just working out on your upper body. If all you did was mindfulness, it's kind of like that. It would certainly help your upper body, but after a while, it can even lead to imbalance if that's all you're doing. And so our well-being training is based upon this framework that understands that there are these ingredients that are critical for flourishing. And it's important not to privilege one ingredient over the other. All four are essential. And so uh, we believe that we need each of these. That's why we've put it all in the same program. And in the research that I've been referring to on the Healthy Minds program, we have a foundations course where people are given 1 week of training on each of the four pillars. So they do 1 week on awareness, 1 week on connection, 1 week on insight, and 1 week on purpose.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And so what you're mentioning here is the Healthy Minds program free app, freely downloadable on the App Store. So thank you so much for highlighting those different constituents of well-being. Richie, I love the analogy of the gym, right? We wouldn't just go and train our triceps or train our quads. We want to have a full body workout. So here we're saying that we want a full sort of mental workout as well. Thank you for that. I'm curious, I know that you are really up to date on the research, and I'm just curious, like, what are you the most excited about in terms of the neuroscience of well-being these days?
Well, I'm excited about a number of things. One is best summarized by saying that it's easier than you think. Um, and so a lot of people, when they hear about meditation, they say, "Oh, I can't meditate. My mind is too chaotic or distracted. It's just not for me." And the response is, well, um, it's easier than you think, and you don't have to sit to meditate. You can meditate anywhere, anytime. And in fact, the research shows that active forms of meditation, where you are intentionally engaging your mind, but you might be walking, or you might be doing your laundry, or you might be washing the dishes. Um, that's all fair game. And the data show that when you use your mind in that way and do active practices, at least at the beginning, they're just as effective as formal meditation practices. So that's something that is super exciting to me because it offers the possibility of massively scaling. Um, uh, so that's one piece. A second is one of the general important emphases in modern medical research is personalized medicine or precision medicine. And we can do the same thing with contemplative practice. That is, it's often the case that when people start to meditate, they try lots of different things and they kind of flit from one program to another. And it's could be frustrating for people to sort of find something that really lands with them and that meshes. People sometimes ask me when I give public talks, what's the best form of meditation you can do? And I'll often say, well, the very best form of meditation that you can do is the form of meditation that you actually do. And that is likely to be different for different people. And if we can figure that out in advance so that we can help match a person with the style of practice that she or he would find most efficacious, that would be a big advance. And we have some very specific strategies for how to do that, how to get an answer to that question, and we're pursuing them now. And so in the next couple of years, we're going to be able to have much more personalized training that is based upon a person's qualities, the qualities of their attention, of the way they think. So using many different attributes that allow us to deeply phenotype a person, to really get at their variations in how their mind works in a way that's relevant to different styles of meditation, we'll be able to offer more specific personalized practices. So that's another thing that I'm really excited about. A third thing is more of a more laboratory research focused, and that is um, better understanding the connections between the mind, brain, and body to help us understand how meditation and different forms of meditation may actually have beneficial consequences for our health and change biological systems that are health relevant and health promoting. And we know, for example, that many chronic illnesses that degrade our quality of life and also exact enormous economic toll in society are chronic illnesses where inflammation is a big component. And we are beginning to better understand the biological mechanisms that give rise to inflammation in both the body and the brain, and how different forms of meditation may actually counteract that.
Wonderful, exciting directions in the future of research. That's very exciting to hear. And I love how you were talking initially about how, there are so many different ways to practice. And of course, as you mentioned before, the most important practice is the one that we do. And sometimes just, sitting quietly can be really tough for some people. And so really opening up the ways that we think about practice into active practices, so ways that we can train our mind as we're doing some sort of repetitive activity that's not so cognitively demanding, or even just as you were mentioning, those short moments of practicing mental training throughout your day attached to certain activities that you might do, like taking a drink of water. So those short moments throughout the day can really help to rewire our brain in a healthier way as well. Fun to hear that.
Totally.
Yeah. One of the things that I think people come to the practice of meditation with is this desire of, it's almost like meditation as medicine, right? So meditation is out there as, being a very popular pursuit. Of course, it's got incredible benefits. And oftentimes I think people can come with this expectation that I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do a meditation practice and I'm going to feel better. And as we know from the practice of meditation and being long-term practitioners like you and I are, in an individual session, it can be very up and down. Sometimes you're faced with like the chaos of your own mind. The monkey mind is very strong. And other times, you of course feel quite calm and peaceful. So this is all a really long-winded way to say, how do we know when we're actually flourishing, when the ups and downs of our practice can be very present? What might be some of the signposts that we're looking for?
Yeah, that's such a critical question and observation. And yeah, at the beginning stages of practice, when we begin to notice how chaotic our minds are, it's very common for things to actually get worse before it gets better. And getting worse is progress. So we like to see that because it means that people are attending more to what's going on in their mind. Um, so the question of how do you know you're actually making progress? Well, one of the best ways I think is to talk to people who you're close with, who observe you on a daily basis. Are you kinder? Are you more gracious? Are you more present? Um, uh, it, I think having in the trade, we call that a second person perspective. First person is observing yourself. Second person is having a close other who is around you, who can offer their perspective. And third person is using some kind of scientific measurement. Um, and second person methods, unfortunately, are not used very often, but they're super important because we can harness them in our everyday lives to get a reading on how we're doing much better than our own observations of ourselves, which of course are relevant, but sometimes we can deceive ourselves into thinking that things are different than they might otherwise appear to a significant other.
Wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Richie. And I'm wondering, I know that you have to leave here in a minute. Do you have some last closing thoughts that you might leave us with?
Well, my final closing thought really is simply an invitation to those of you who are listening or viewing this, and going back to a comment I made earlier about it being easier than you think. And so the key, I think, is really consistency and just trying to incorporate these practices on a regular basis into your daily life. And it could be coupled to something you do on a daily basis, to meals, for example. We all eat a few times a day. That's a wonderful opportunity to practice appreciation for all the people it took to have food on your plate. Also, interdependence. You recognize how complicated it actually is to have food on your plate. How many people in many different places might it have taken for you to be eating? Those are just precious opportunities, and we have them every single day. And so the invitation is simply, let's be aware of this and wake up to all that's happening. And that really is an important elixir for our soul and can really help us to flourish.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Richie. We're thankful that you're here with us today, and you will be back with us for the concluding session of the course, which is happening on June 3rd at, I believe, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, where you all will have an opportunity to ask questions of Richie based on your experience of going through the course. So thank you so much, Richie, for joining us. And if for some reason you had difficulties logging on to this session today, I believe that it will be posted, I think, on YouTube for you to be able to watch the missing pieces from the interview with Richie. So thanks so much, Richie. Wishing you a good evening. See you soon.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, Tammy. Bye-bye.
Okay, so I'm going to take over the remainder of the session here for about the next 20 to 30 minutes. And so for those of you that are just joining, my name is Stephanie Wagner. I'm the Director of Learning and Development for Healthy Minds Innovations. And I'm also one of the course guides for the Science of Flourishing that is kicking off with Sounds True 1 today. So now that we've had a chance to hear some of the inspiring scientific insights, let's take a moment to put it into practice. You know, what I really appreciate about the way that this course is laid out and, you know, live sessions like this is that it can give us the opportunity to practice together. I know that, you know, sometimes when we're by ourselves, we're meditating, it can be kind of a lonely, isolating pursuit. So here we're transforming this really into a global community movement of positive change where we're working together with our minds and our hearts towards more presence, more connection and care, more curiosity and more meaning. And, you know, just like Richie was saying earlier, you know, every single moment that we spend practicing has this ripple effect into the world and starts becoming a part of a larger movement. So you're bringing more balance into the world. And so these practices that we're doing have a ripple effect and really help the world be a better place. So in this practice, we are going to work with two particular areas of well-being. The first is presence, which is awareness. And then we're going to work with purpose, which has incredible benefits to well-being. So please join me for this guided practice for about, I don't know, we'll say the next 7 minutes or so. So I'll invite you here to just take your seat here. And we're going to start with practicing presence. So the first thing is just to find a posture in which you're feeling alert, awake, yet a little relaxed. You can feel free to close your eyes or keep them open with a soft gaze. And just begin to settle in by taking a couple of slow, deep breaths here. And as you do this, you can just bring awareness to the feeling of your body breathing. And then you can let your breath return to its normal pace, its normal rhythm. And now just bring awareness to your body and notice any sensations that are present. The feeling of sitting on the chair, your feet on the ground. You might experience warmth or coolness or tingling. So just tune into your body and just see if you can notice what's happening with a sense of openness and curiosity. And so this is awareness, this quality of our mind that knows our experience and allows us to be present. When your mind has wandered, come back to just being with the sensations in your body. With every moment of presence, you're contributing to something bigger. I invite you to reflect on what the world would be like if everyone practiced being more present. How might this impact relationships or even global events? Take a moment to reflect on this. And once the reflection has run its course, you can just allow your mind to rest in a state of being rather than doing, and you can just let it go. And so present and not lost, but not focused on anything in particular. And so now I'll invite you to reflect on your values. As you sit here practicing meditation, what values are you expressing? Maybe it's something like perseverance, self-care, self-kindness. So just take a moment to reflect on this specific value and how you're embodying this value right here in this moment. Now you can ask yourself, how might I bring this value more fully into my life these days? And just see what comes to your mind. By reflecting on your values, not only are you bringing them to the surface in your own life, but you're bringing them more fully into the world. You're a part of a world where we're staying aligned with our guiding principles. Just appreciate for a moment how wonderful this is. And then you can just let go of the reflection. You can blink open your eyes if they've been closed. Maybe just take a moment to appreciate being a part of a community of practice. Okay. So in this practice, we did two things. It was very short, but what we did was we practiced presence, which is in the pillar of awareness. And then we connected with meaning, which is in the pillar of purpose. Now, often when we think about living a meaningful life, it can feel like we need to do something quite drastic in order to experience meaning. Like we might need to, leave our jobs and join the Peace Corps or something. But in fact, there is meaning that underlies every single thing that we do. The fact that you're taking an hour here to be on this session, learning about well-being, the science behind it, and practicing points to the fact that you value something that's really important to you. And so what we learn when we begin to practice skills like purpose is we can begin to connect with the meaning that's already there. We just don't recognize it. We can begin to see that even our trips to the grocery store have meaning, the chores that we do at home, the way that we do our work. So we can find meaning even in the midst of the mundane. In fact, we can even find meaning in the midst of difficult circumstances. And in fact, the research points to really important benefits of practicing purpose. So purpose makes us more resilient to stress. It can increase our longevity. Purposeful people actually live longer. It can increase our life satisfaction and our positive emotions. And it can also increase our caring behaviors, not surprisingly. So lots of different benefits of practicing purpose. So purpose, as Richie mentioned, is just one of the pillars of well-being in the Healthy Minds framework that you will learn about in the Science of Flourishing. And so what I'd like to do here is I'd like to just share with you a slide so that you can see more of a visual picture here of everything that is featured in the 4 pillars of a healthy mind. So the 4 pillars of a healthy mind are awareness, connection, insight, and purpose. So I'd like to maybe just give you a little introduction to each one so that you know what is included in the class, hopefully inspires you to get started or perhaps even inspire you to join. So the first pillar of well-being is all around awareness. As we just experienced in that practice, these are skills that help us to be present with what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what we're seeing, sensing, all of the information that we're receiving from our senses. And so the skills that we're practicing here are really important skills like attention, mindfulness, and self-awareness. These are the skills that are critical for emotional regulation, helping us to move from reactivity into being more thoughtful and responsive in our responses. The next pillar of well-being is all around connection. So the pillar of connection really helps us to begin to widen our circle of care and concern. So it's very easy to feel a sense of affinity and appreciation for people that we like and people that we know, but it's not so easy to experience that kind of warmth and care with strangers, and it's even harder with people that we don't like. So here we begin to widen our circle of care and concern to include not only those that are in our social in-group, but also those that are outside of it. And we learn to do this through the skills of kindness, compassion, and appreciation. The third pillar of well-being is all about insight. These are skills associated with curiosity. Here we begin to explore things like our beliefs, our expectations, our assumptions, our habits of thoughts, and we begin to see how much they influence not only the way that we see the world, but also the way in which we experience our sense of self. We begin to actually get curious, we inquire around these patterns, we gain knowledge about ourselves, and from there we can actually experience a sense of self in a way of being in the world that's more open, more curious, less rigid, and more flexible. And then, as we just experienced in this last practice, purpose. So purpose is all about connecting with meaning, and it's connecting with the meaning that's already there. We do this by clarifying our purpose, embodying our values, and also finding meaning. And so these are all skills that are trainable, as well as the science links them back to being beneficial to well-being. So we can see the evidence for the Healthy Minds framework is that these skills are central to resilience and flourishing. They impact and are related to specific networks in the brain. They can be learned and cultivated. And they also have roots in the world's wisdom traditions, as well as coming from other areas like philosophy, contemplative practices from the Asian meditative tradition, and more. So you learn a lot more about all of these different skills and you practice them in the science of flourishing. Okay. So I want to talk now a little bit about what you can expect from the Science of Flourishing course. So throughout the Science of Flourishing course, you're going to have the opportunity to learn about the skills to thrive that go beyond mindfulness, as Richie had said, and you're going to learn directly from the experts. Experts like Dr. Richard Davidson, who you all know here, Dr. Cortland Dahl, who you may not be as familiar with, but he is actually one of the creators of the Healthy Minds framework of well-being. He is he's the chief contemplative officer at the Center for Healthy Minds and Healthy Minds Innovations. And then you'll also hear from the program guides like myself. So what's important here is that we're actually using the inspiration from the science, and we're moving that inspiration into actually training our minds in an experiential way so that we can experience what it's like to thrive and be resilient. Without the practice, our learning doesn't really make a difference in the world. So we really want to make sure as we go through this course that we are practicing. And what you'll find as you go throughout the course is that each module has specific habit formation tips to help you get consistent with your practice. As Richie mentioned, the best practice is the practice that you can do, and consistency is what really makes a difference in terms of thriving. So in the course, you'll find that there are two primary components. So the first is that there is a course online through Sounds True One that is asynchronous online materials. As Tammy mentioned in the intro, there are 5 modules, and then there's also a getting started as well as a conclusion. But really the heart of the course is 5 different modules. And then in addition to the asynchronous course, then there's also these live community practice sessions that will be led by either myself or Jay Vidyarthi, who is also a Healthy Minds program guide. And so I want to tell you first, I'll tell you a little bit about each one of these components, but let's just first start with the asynchronous course. So in the asynchronous course, it's comprised of different learning activities where, again, you're going to learn all about thriving and flourishing. And in each module, there are videos from the experts. There are written reflection prompts to help you take what you're learning and really begin to make sense of it in the context of your own life, which is really important. And then there are, of course, guided practices. And so we want to make sure that we're doing the guided practices because this is where the real change will come, is from doing the practices. So each course module will take about a week. There are anywhere between like 8 to 10 learning activities. So you can just take a look at the module and decide how many activities you want to do in a given day. But the idea would be that when you come up to the live session with the Healthy Minds guides, which are scheduled on Tuesdays, starting with next Tuesday, that you come to that session having gone through the course materials. And what's going to be really rich about this is that those live sessions then are really the opportunity for you to be able to ask questions about the material, ask questions about your practice, to be able to gather together in a community of practicing, and to be able to discuss your experience. Again, I think that there's really something very powerful about giving voice to our understanding and making sense of it. And so by having gone through the materials first, that is a good way to do that. That way you're coming to the live session with really the fuel to be able to maximize the impact that it will have on your well-being. So I think that is it. So I just want to say, I hope that you feel excited to start the course. If you're not currently signed up for the course, we invite you to join us really in this global movement of change, a global movement towards kindness, presence, curiosity, meaning, When we begin to work with our own hearts and minds, it has a positive influence on the world around us, and we can really begin to thrive as a community together. So if you're interested in signing up, you can sign up I believe there's a link in the chat here. And if you're already signed up, please make sure you get started in the course by going through the Getting Started Welcome portion, as well as the first module. So with that said, I will turn it over to Tammy.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. You know, I always love being with you and Richie. Your joy, optimism, and knowledge of what you're sharing and your enthusiasm for it. It's so contagious. It goes right, I think, heart to heart. I love it. So thank you. And thank you for Healthy Minds Innovations partnering with Sounds True. It's a partnership we really value, and the depth of research that you and your team have done to be able to come forward with this framework and model, and then for us to practice together in such a welcoming spirit. So thank you so much for partnering with us to bring the science of flourishing to people. Thank you everyone for being with us here on this opening session. Take good care.
Thank you so much, Tammy. Bye, everybody. Look forward to seeing you next Tuesday for the live session.